Instructor Thalrex had broken exactly 217 species over his illustrious 30-year career at the Galactic Survival Academy, each record carved into his mind like a badge of honor. His training methods were legendary, from the scorching deserts of Felstron to the deepest jungles of Cotter. He had seen species capable of surviving unimaginable conditions fail before his eyes. The Clections, their adaptive physiology faltering under the high-gravity traps. The Vorten, who once hunted giant space serpents, reduced to a sobbing heap within the first few hours. Nothing surprised Thalrex anymore. At least, that was until Brixa, the Academy administrator, entered his office one morning with the news. Her tentacles moved gracefully behind her as she approached, and the glimmer in her multifaceted eyes was unmistakable. "We've received a human trainee," she announced with an air of mystery. Thalrex barely looked up from his screen. "Another one? How many times have I told you to send them to the beginner level? They're soft. Fragile." Brix's mandibles twitched in something akin to amusement. "This one specifically requested your advanced course." Thalrex snorted, tapping on his console. "Fine. A human. Sure. I'll give them the tour of misery. What's next? A participation certificate?" Brix's multifaceted eyes glinted again. "She's requested your course by name, Thalrex. The one with the 40% mortality rate." Thalrex froze, mandibles clicking in thought. That particular course had broken even the most seasoned veterans. It wasn't just about survival, it was a test of the body and mind under excruciating conditions. If this human was truly brave, or foolish, enough to ask for it, she might provide more than just another average test. The day of arrival, Thalrex found himself in the landing bay, waiting for his latest challenge. When the transport shuttle doors opened, a human figure stepped out. Thalrex had expected someone taller, more physically imposing, or at the very least, someone who looked like they were prepared for battle. Instead, what he saw was a short woman with reddish-brown hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, an unbothered look on her face, and a bag slung lazily over her shoulder. She seemed more like a tourist than a soldier. Her fatigues were slightly wrinkled from the long journey, and her boots didn't look anywhere near as polished as the military standards he was accustomed to. She looked up at him, and despite the undeniable difference in their size, her posture was casual, even confident. "Hey," she greeted him cheerfully, extending her hand. "I'm Juno Devereux. You must be Thalrex, the famous instructor, right?" Thalrex blinked, surprised by her boldness. No one had ever greeted him like this. He took her hand, his own large claws gently wrapping around her smaller hand. "Yes, I am Thalrex," he replied, his voice deep and controlled. "You understand what you're about to face, human? The training here is designed to break all but the strongest." Juno smiled, as if Thalrex was reciting a line from a book. "Yeah, sounds like my kind of thing. Do you guys have any coffee around here, though? I'm gonna need some if we're getting started." Thalrex stared at her. Coffee? After hearing her speak of surviving Deathworld environments, coffee was her concern? Coffee? Thalrex echoed, incredulity in his voice. "Yup, it's a thing we humans need. And I'm pretty sure I won't survive this place without it." She shrugged casually. Thalrex's mandibles clicked as he processed the request. Level 3. The Commissary. You have 60 minutes to prepare yourself. Your training begins at 0900 hours sharp. Do not be late. The first test began in the Rift of Souls, an arena designed to simulate the most hostile environments in known space. The chamber's air shifted rapidly, creating an atmosphere of crushing heat, toxic gases, and violent winds. Thalrex could see Juno standing in the middle of it all, eyes squinting against the intense light, but she did not flinch. Thalrex waited eagerly to see how long she would last. Her vitals were steady, almost unnervingly so. No rapid breathing, no panic. After 10 minutes passed, Juno was still standing, shaking her head and muttering to herself. "You okay?" Thalrex asked, his voice crackling over the intercom. Juno waved a hand dismissively. "Yeah, I'm fine. I've been in worse conditions on Earth. Can we make this a bit more challenging, though?" Thalrex was silent for a moment. Impossible. She wasn't even showing signs of distress. He cranked the temperature higher, forcing the atmosphere to spike. The winds turned into gale force gusts, and the air was laced with the stench of sulfur and ammonia. Still, Juno remained unaffected. "This can't be happening," Thalrex muttered. The next trial was the infamous Gauntlet of Ravagers, designed to test the combat skills and reflexes of even the bravest warriors. The massive predators, genetically engineered for one purpose, killing, were unleashed. The Academy's hunting arena was filled with their growls and screeches as they locked onto their prey. The first one lunged at Juno, its claws gleaming under the lights. Juno simply stepped aside with a smirk. "Really?" she said aloud, as though bored. She fired her stunner at the first creature, and in a matter of seconds, it crumpled to the ground. The next two didn't fare much better. With quick reflexes, Juno neutralized them one by one, her movements fluid and calculated. Thalrex stared, completely stunned. The Ravagers were supposed to be lethal, almost impossible to defeat, but Juno had taken them out with casual ease. She didn't even seem to be breaking a sweat. "Is this normal?" Krillnex asked, her voice crackling over the comm. "No," Thalrex said, the frustration building. "It's impossible." Next came the trial Thalrex was certain would break her, the trial of extremes. It tested adaptability to rapid environmental shifts. One moment, the temperature would drop to sub-zero levels. The next, the humidity would soar, and the room would heat up to unbearable degrees. Juno stood in the center of the chamber as the temperature plunged, her breath misting in the air. "Is this all?" she asked, shaking her head. "It's like a sauna compared to some of the stuff I've done. Are you sure this is supposed to break me?" Thalrex watched as she moved from the freezing side of the chamber to the boiling side, without so much as a flinch. "This is beyond comprehension." She raised a brow. "You know, this might actually be more difficult if you threw in a few spiders or snakes. I hate those things." The final trial was the Dead Zone, a completely simulated alien landscape teeming with hostile wildlife and environmental hazards. Thalrex was certain no one, not even the most battle-hardened veteran, would survive the full 48-hour trial. Juno entered the zone, her gear unremarkable compared to the specialized suits worn by others. She stood there, looking around as though she was about to go for a casual walk through a park. Minutes passed, then hours. She navigated the terrain with ease, avoiding traps and neutralizing creatures that threatened her path. At one point, a giant insectoid beast lunged from the shadows, but before it could even make a move, Juno tossed a device at it that emitted a high-pitched sound, disabling the creature instantly. After 24 hours, Thalrex could no longer hide his growing admiration mixed with disbelief. "This human, she isn't human." It was only when the trial concluded, and Juno stood in front of him, fully unscathed, that Thalrex finally spoke. "You've completed everything," he said, voice flat. "You've survived every test. You're a better soldier than anyone I've ever trained. How did you do this?" Juno smiled, wiping the sweat off her brow. "Honestly? I just don't think I'm supposed to break. Maybe it's the coffee. Or maybe, humans are just really good at dealing with extremes." Thalrex stared at her. His entire worldview, his understanding of biology, survival, and resilience, was being dismantled before his very eyes. "You've broken me," he admitted finally, in a tone that was almost reverent. Juno's grin widened. "You know, I have to ask, do you have any coffee here? Because after everything we just did, I could really use a cup." Thalrex, still processing everything that had just happened, turned away. "Get out. Go, enjoy your coffee. You've earned it." As she left, Thalrex slumped into his chair. He had spent decades breaking species, and now, a human had broken him. Just then, his console beeped. He glanced down at the updated human data file, which had been automatically forwarded to him. The first line of the new section made his blood run cold. Class 12 Deathworld, Earth, the most dangerous world in the galaxy. Instructor Thalrex had spent a lifetime training, breaking, and reshaping species to understand their limits. He had constructed tests, devised trials, and perfected methods to weed out the weak. But nothing, had prepared him for the enigma that was Juno Devereux. She had endured the impossible, laughed in the face of death, and emerged stronger with every challenge. The tests meant to break her had only served to reveal the truth. Humans weren't just survivors, they were a force of nature. They adapted, overcame, and thrived where others crumbled. In the end, Juno was not just a student. She was a revelation, a living testament to the sheer unpredictability of humanity. She had shattered every expectation and had broken not just the physical limits of survival, but the very concept of what was possible. For Thalrex, it wasn't just a matter of training. It was about acknowledging that humanity was not a species to be underestimated. In fact, perhaps it was he who needed to rethink his entire approach to survival, because he had just witnessed the most astonishing phenomenon of all, humans truly were capable of anything. As the graduation ceremony concluded, and Juno stood before the academy, her certificate in hand, she caught Thalrex's eye across the room. She gave him a knowing smile, a quiet acknowledgement of the battle fought and won. And though Thalrex had already witnessed countless victories, this one felt different. For the first time in his career, he didn't feel like the winner. Juno Devereux had won, and she hadn't even broken a sweat. What do you think? Can you imagine the possibilities if you were thrown into this kind of survival challenge? Do you think you have the resilience to face the impossible and push through the extremes? If you enjoyed Juno's journey and want more epic stories of survival, unpredictability, and human strength, subscribe now and hit the bell icon to get notified every time we bring you a new tale of unexpected triumph. Let us know in the comments, what would your strategy be in a training like this? Could you face the challenge? Don't miss out, your adventure begins here.